Alright, let's talk about Siberium for a second. If you've spent even a little time in this game, you already know it's not just about leveling up whoever looks cool. Siberium is an idle RPG, sure, but the strategy part hits hard, especially when it comes to team building. With more than 50 heroes in the game, all split into roles like warrior, mage, priest, and shield guard, it's really easy to waste resources on heroes that feel strong early, but completely fall off later. And early on, every upgrade, every pull, and every investment actually matters. That's exactly why I'm making this video. In this tier list, we're going through all the currently available heroes in Siberium and ranking them based on real usefulness. Things like damage output, debuffs, survivability, team buffs, and how well they scale into mid and late game. The goal here is simple: help you avoid bad picks, focus on meta-defining heroes, and progress faster without regrets. Whether you're just starting out or trying to optimize your lineup, this tier list will give you a clear idea of who's worth your time and who you can safely skip. Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking heroes in Siberium. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The heroes in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Illidan, Tiki, Mechanic, Wolf, Visa, Lai, Valkyrie, Kars, and Rage. At this point in the game, this is the part where you look at your roster, sigh quietly, and say, yeah, these heroes are probably not coming with me to the late game. Let's talk about the D tier heroes in Siberium, the ones that technically exist, technically work, but emotionally let you down. Illidan is a perfect example of early game optimism. At the very beginning, his damage per second feels acceptable and even a little promising. You might think, okay, this guy can carry for a bit, and he does. For a bit. The problem is that once you reach mid-game, his damage just does not keep up at all. Other heroes scale harder, hit faster, and bring more utility, leaving Illidan as that unit you quietly replace and never look back. Tiki tries really hard to look useful on paper. He has area damage and even some debuff effects baked into his skills, which sounds great at first glance. But once you actually use him, you realize his overall damage per second is painfully low compared to most warriors. He does not excel at damage, does not shine as support, and ends up being one of those heroes that you replace the moment you pull almost anyone better. Mechanic feels friendly when you are new to the game. His skills are straightforward, his damage is not terrible early on, and he does not feel complicated to use. Unfortunately, that is where the positives stop. His survivability is weak, he needs a lot of external buffs to stay relevant, and even with support, he fails to make a real impact in both player versus player and player versus environment content. He works, but he never shines. Wolf is one of those heroes that looks like a tank and kind of acts like a tank, but never fully commits. He can soak some damage, especially in player versus environment situations, but that is basically the end of his usefulness. He does not bring reliable utility, does not control fights, and is heavily outclassed by other tanks that do his job better and with more consistency. Visa is often described as a low investment mage, and that description is very accurate. She can provide some area damage without needing many resources, which sounds appealing early on. The issue is that her base stats are among the weakest in the game. On top of that, she offers no crowd control, no debuffs, and no meaningful team utility. She is cheap, yes, but there is a reason for that. Lai gives you hope if you are desperate for healing. She has decent healing skills and provides a few buffs that feel helpful at first. Sadly, her healing values scale very poorly as the game progresses. Outside of very specific faction-based setups, her team synergy is weak, and she quickly falls behind other healers who simply do more with less effort. Valkyrie is a hero that buffs herself a lot. On paper, she looks powerful because she stacks multiple self-enhancing effects. In reality, she only has one actual damage skill, which makes her extremely awkward to use. Despite all those buffs, she struggles to contribute in meaningful ways, and fitting her into any functional team setup feels like forcing a square peg into a round hole. Kars stands on the front line and looks like he belongs there. He has self-buffs, decent durability, and the vibe of a proper bruiser. But his damage output is underwhelming, and none of his skills truly stand out. To make matters worse, his ultimate ability actually damages himself, which is one of those design choices that sounds interesting but feels terrible in practice. Rage tries to be supportive, offering small amounts of healing and minimal assistance to the team. Unfortunately, those healing numbers are extremely low, and he brings no meaningful buffs for the late game. As content gets harder, Rage simply stops mattering, turning into a hero you remember only because you once invested resources into him and still regret it. And that's the D tier in Siberium. Heroes that are not completely useless, but definitely not heroes you want to build your future around. The heroes in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Lord of Terror, Queen of Pain, Sandra, Judge, Captain, Fergus, Ice Emperor Ivan, Mercy, and Wayne. This is where things stop being painful and start being awkwardly acceptable, because these heroes are not terrible, but they also are not winning you championships. Welcome to the C-tier heroes in Siberium, the land of almost good and maybe later. Lord of Terror feels like a brick wall that forgot it was supposed to hit back. His durability is genuinely solid, and the curse he applies makes enemies take extra damage over time. On top of that, he can reduce incoming damage by 10%, which sounds great defensively. The problem is simple: his damage output is extremely low. He survives forever, but the fight also lasts forever, and that is rarely what you want. Queen of Pain is a hero that shines only when the stars align. Her skills can deal area damage and detonate curses, which makes her incredibly satisfying in the right composition. When paired with heroes that consistently apply curses, she actually feels powerful. Outside of those niche teams though, her performance becomes wildly inconsistent, making her a risky pick in most general setups. Sandra is the definition of a reliable mid-game carry. She brings good damage per second, strong area damage, and feels amazing in player versus environment content early on. For a while, she really carries her weight. Sadly, once you move into late game, her scaling falls off hard. She does not have a single standout skill that keeps her relevant when enemies start getting tougher. Judge is one of those heroes that sounds incredible when you read the skill descriptions. He can heal allies and even revive fallen teammates, and his single target healing numbers are among the highest in the game. The issue is that every single skill he has comes with extremely long cooldowns. When things go wrong twice in a row, Judge simply does not have answers fast enough. Captain tries to do a little bit of everything. He deals hybrid damage, applies a debuff that weakens enemies, slows them down, and buffs himself at the same time. In theory, that sounds amazing. In practice, his debuff application chance is low, his scaling is weak, and most of the time he ends up feeling unreliable rather than versatile. Fergus works as a single target burst damage mage who can also buff allies and debuff enemies. On paper, that is a great combination. Unfortunately, his buffs and debuffs are not very strong and are not guaranteed to land. When they fail, Fergus feels average at best, and when they succeed, he still does not reach the impact level of higher tier mages. Ice Emperor Ivan is all about control. Nearly every skill he has offers some form of crowd control, which makes him excellent at disrupting enemies. He also has decent survivability thanks to built-in damage reduction. The downside is his low damage output and the fact that he performs much better only when paired with heroes from the same faction, limiting his flexibility. Mercy is a very friendly hero for beginners. She offers solid healing, both area-based and single target, and even provides a small buff that helps early teams feel stable. The problem is that she completely falls off in late game. Her buffs become irrelevant, and her healing is outclassed by more advanced support heroes. Wayne rounds out the C tier with a very clear identity. He delivers consistent damage, has some area effects, and heavily buffs himself with increased attack and critical stats. When he is alive, he feels great. The issue is that he is incredibly fragile, and in late game content, he can get eliminated in a single hit, turning all that damage potential into nothing. That is the C tier in Siberium. Heroes that can absolutely work, heroes that might carry you for a while, but also heroes that will eventually make you ask yourself whether it is time to move on. The heroes in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Moon, Paladin, Adventurer, Oliver, Deadhand, Medusa, Altair, Kirk, Alexia, and Emperor. Right here is the tier where heroes stop being "why did I build this?" and start becoming "okay, can work with this." The B tier heroes in Siberium are reliable, sometimes impressive, but they always come with a very specific catch that keeps them from greatness. Moon is all about steady pressure. Her skills consistently deal area damage, and she even has a respectable chance to apply control effects, which feels great in longer fights. The issue shows up later, when enemy stats explode and her damage per second just cannot keep up. She still works, but late game turns her into more of an annoyance than a threat. Paladin is your classic defensive rock. He protects the team with taunt skills, holds the front line reliably, and boosts his own damage reduction to stay alive longer. If your team needs time to function, Paladin buys it. What he does not bring is damage. His offensive impact is minimal, and he will never be the reason you win a fight. Adventurer shines early and feels fantastic while doing it. He is easy to build, delivers strong burst damage, and has well-balanced stats with self-buffs that make him flexible. Sadly, as the game progresses, higher-tier warriors simply do everything he does, but better. He is solid, just not special once late game arrives. Oliver is one of the more consistent magic damage dealers in this tier. He performs well in both player versus environment and player versus player thanks to his debuffs, and his damage output is steady rather than random. The downside is his lack of burst damage. Without strong external buffs, Oliver feels slow when fights need to end quickly. Dead Hand is a single target specialist through and through. His damage against one enemy is strong, and lifesteal on his skills gives him surprisingly good survivability. Unfortunately, he has almost no area damage at all, which makes him struggle badly in player versus environment content where multiple enemies are the norm. Medusa is all about control and disruption. She can apply multiple debuffs at once, hitting up to 4 enemies, which can completely swing a fight when it works. The problem is consistency. Her debuffs are not guaranteed to land, and when they miss, her impact drops sharply, making her feel unreliable. Altair is an absolute wall. He boasts some of the highest defensive stats in the game, can protect allies with a defensive buff, and soak enormous amounts of damage. However, his overall contribution feels low unless the team is heavily focused on support and sustain. Without that setup, he just stands there, very bravely. Kirk brings healing and bulk in one package. He offers area healing, decent support, and has high health and defense for a healer, which helps him stay alive longer than most. Sadly, his stats scale poorly, and as content gets harder, his healing output quickly falls behind stronger supports. Alexia is pure aggression. She is a high damage assassin who specializes in burst damage, targeting backline enemies and those with the highest attack. When she deletes someone, it feels amazing. The trade-off is her extremely low defense and health. One mistake, one hit, and she is gone. Emperor closes out the B tier as a durable frontline presence. He can reflect damage, heal himself, and performs especially well in player versus player scenarios. The catch is timing. His skills and buffs take time to ramp up, and against heavy burst damage, he struggles to survive long enough to matter. That is the B tier in Siberium. Dependable heroes with clear strengths, clear weaknesses, and just enough limitations to keep them from climbing any higher. The heroes in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Slayer, Lee, Voland, Ida, Sword, Godly, Lod, Minos, Lucifer, King Button, and Seraph. Now we are officially in the comfort zone, the tier where heroes stop making excuses and start actually doing their jobs properly. A tier heroes in Siberium are strong, reliable, and in many cases feel almost overpowered, but just barely miss that top tier status. Slayer is what happens when burst damage meets consistency. He delivers heavy single target damage, scales extremely well into mid and the late game, and functions as a reliable frontline damage dealer. His execute style skills are especially satisfying, turning low health enemies into immediate problems of the past. Lee is all about smooth, steady performance. He pumps out consistent area damage across fights and fits beautifully into teams stacked with attack buffs. What really sets him apart is his survivability. Health regeneration on a damage-focused hero makes Lee far more durable than most DPS units, allowing him to stay active when others fall. Voland brings control and sustain together in one clean package. His healing over time keeps allies alive through prolonged fights, while his debuffs consistently weaken enemy teams. He slots perfectly into balanced compositions, providing both buffs and pressure without demanding the entire team be built around him. Aida is the definition of reliable support. She comes loaded with multiple healing skills, offers strong debuff application, and works exceptionally well in player versus environment content. What makes her truly A tier is how easy she is to include in almost any team without disrupting synergy. Sword God Lee exists to erase high-value targets. His burst damage against priority enemies is brutal, and he scales incredibly well with offensive buffs. Add his strong area damage into the mix, and you get a hero that dominates player versus player fights when used correctly. Lod is a workhorse mage that never feels out of place. He deals consistent area magic damage, applies crowd control, and brings debuffs that matter. Whether you are building for player versus environment or player versus player, Lod finds a role and performs it well. Minos blends damage and defense better than most mages. He outputs solid damage per second while offering defensive utility, especially in teams packed with crowd control. His self-buff skills and natural survivability let him stay relevant even in chaotic fights. Lucifer is surprisingly flexible for a hero with such a strong identity. He boosts team damage, sustains himself with reliable healing, and thrives in longer battles. Thanks to his durability, he can even function as a frontline unit when needed, which adds massive value to team building. King Button is a stat monster. He boasts some of the best offensive and defensive numbers in the game, making him a dependable carry from early to mid-game. With self-buffs and area damage built into his skills, he can tank, deal damage, and carry fights all at once. Seraph closes out the A tier with exceptional scaling. Her damage increases the longer a fight lasts, especially when paired with strong buffers. She thrives in priest-heavy teams, turning drawn-out battles into guaranteed wins through relentless scaling damage. This is the A tier in Siberium. Heroes that feel powerful, flexible, and dependable, and only miss the top tier because something, somewhere, is just slightly holding them back. The heroes in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Blademaster, Gabur, Bam the Great, Hades, Long, Archangel, Sword of Destiny, Thor, and Vila. This is the moment where team building stops being a puzzle and starts feeling like a power fantasy, because these heroes do not ask politely to win fights, they simply take control and refuse to let go. Welcome to the S-tier heroes in Siberium, the absolute best of the best. Blademaster is pure dominance wrapped in a single unit. Ignoring up to 20% of enemy defense already makes his burst damage terrifying, but then he goes a step further by stealing attack from enemies and turning their strength into his own. Add burn, confusion, solid area damage, and deadly burst skills, and you get a hero that feels broken in every mode, from player versus environment to player versus player. Gabur is the kind of support that makes every other hero on your team look better instantly. Increasing enemy damage taken by 30% massively amplifies team damage, while buff dispels shut down defensive compositions completely. On top of that, he grants lifesteal to the entire team based on damage dealt, turning long fights into guaranteed wins. His kit is so complete that teams feel unfinished without him. Bam! The Great is crowd control done right. He can silence enemies for multiple rounds, which alone is game-changing, but he also deals true damage based on maximum health, making him scale brutally well into late game. Team-wide physical damage reduction adds even more value, and his ability to gain extra buffs depending on team composition makes him incredibly adaptable. Hades is the ultimate problem solver. He removes multiple enemy buffs, applies curse debuffs, cleanses allies with high success rates, and automatically protects the team when health drops below 50%. The fact that he also brings respectable burst damage on top of all that utility makes him one of the most complete heroes in the entire game. Long is destruction on a massive scale. His area damage hits hard, shreds armor, and detonates curses for explosive burst potential. Stealth and status immunity keep him alive longer than expected, and his heavy self-healing on enemy defeats lets him noble fights out of control. Once Long starts rolling, stopping him becomes nearly impossible. Archangel blends raw stats with overwhelming pressure. His area damage combined with Divine Flame melts teams over time, while his self-buffing allows him to dominate extended fights. With base stats higher than most warriors and extremely lethal burst windows, Archangel is especially terrifying in player versus player scenarios. Sword of Destiny exists for one purpose: deleting the most dangerous enemy on the field. He always targets the highest attack opponent, applies attack-reducing debuffs, and completely dispels enemy buffs. As one of the strongest burst mages in Siberium, he turns defensive setups into liabilities instead of protections. Thor brings control, damage, and a disruption all at once. He consistently locks down high attack enemies, ignores defense to guarantee damage, and reduces enemy critical rate across the battlefield. Adds strong offensive buffs for himself and the team, and Thor becomes a relentless force that dictates the pace of every fight. Vila rounds out the S tier as a debuff specialist taken to the extreme. Slow and freeze effects control enemy turns, reliable area damage pressures multiple targets, and armor rend punishes high health enemies hard. When it comes to pure debuff-focused mages, Vila stands comfortably at the top. This is the S tier of Siberium. Heroes that define the meta, carry teams effortlessly, and make every other tier feel like a warm-up act. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.